Okay, this is Orlando Wilson, and what I want to talk about in this video, quickly as always, I'm going to answer a question somebody asked me reference Kidnap and Ransom. This gentleman's read one of my books on Kidnap and Ransom, and in there I mentioned something about paying for proof of life. And the gentleman asked me my further opinions on paying for proof of life in kidnap and ransom situations, if you're doing an investigation, etc., etc., if you're assisting the victim's family. Okay, for those of you who don't know, if somebody's kidnapped, before you pay a ransom, you need to ensure the person is alive. So this is where proof of life comes in. These days, some criminals, some gangs are asking the victim's family for payment to provide proof of life. To me, that's a big red flag. And I've dealt with what comes to mind one specific situation where the family was asked for payment for proof of life, and I was like, well, the chances are if the bad guys, the kidnappers, are asking for payment for proof of life, the victim's already dead. So it's something where I'm a little bit cynical on payment for proof of life. Now this started to become big in the first Syrian civil war, where a lot of people were getting kidnapped, not just Westerners. And the bad guys, the kidnappers, were asking the families, those paying the ransom, for payment for proof of life. And a lot of times they're asking excessive amounts of money. The incident we were dealing with, they wanted $50,000 for proof of life, and then a ransom would come afterwards. The issue is with paying for proof of life is you don't know, you have to be sure that you're actually paying the kidnappers and not just some scammers. What's happened in a lot of places is when there's a high-profile kidnapping, the families of the victim will go on the television or go on social media and say, okay, we want our family member back, etc., etc., etc. What happens then is a lot of scammers will reach out to the family and say, okay, we're the kidnappers, we'll provide you proof of life, we need X amount of money. And payments for proof of life have been paid to scammers. And this is down to, you can go to the family members and say, okay, we suggest you don't pay, we can't guarantee these are the actual kidnappers. But the thing is, you've got to remember the emotional state of the family. They're going to want their loved one back, so they're willing to pay. There's even been high-profile cases, and again, people don't like to talk about this thing, where ransoms have been paid to the wrong people. Because people pretended to be the kidnappers, but they were not the kidnappers, but the ransom was paid. This is where these days, especially with AI, you have to be extremely careful that the proof of life, whether paid for or not, is actually real. The best way, well, what usually happens in a lot of cases, which is 100%, is questions and answers. A question will be given, a question will be asked for the criminals, kidnappers to ask the victim, and they'll come back with an answer. The trouble is with photos, videos, they can be doctored. So this is where proof of life, paying for proof of life, is something which is, to me, would raise a major red flag, because it says the criminals, the kidnappers, they're a little bit difficult to negotiate with. And if you can't negotiate them to start with, there's going to be problems later on. And I know of plenty of cases where ransoms have been paid and bodies turn up, etc., etc. The victims are not released. It's common. Or they just disappear. The kidnappers disappear and nobody's ever heard from again. So this is where, if people are asking for payment for proof of life, to me it would be a red flag. But again, if you're dealing with a family that's distraught, worried, and want their loved one back, the chances are they'll want to pay. They want to do anything to get their loved one back. So from a risk management perspective, from a consultancy perspective, you can guide the families, you can guide the victims, associates, etc., but the chances are they'll want to do everything possible to get their loved one back and be nice to the bad guys, etc., because they don't want their loved one ending up hurt, etc., where the chances are they could already be dead. So yeah, I am a little bit cynical on such things, because I'm cynical. Anyway, just my opinion on paying for proof of life. You have to be very, very careful who you're dealing with and ensure you're not being scammed. But K&R, kidnap and ransom investigations, consultancy can be a very, very delicate game, and there are no guaranteed end results. This is where you've got to try and guide the families, the victims' associates as best as possible, but you need to make it clear to them what you're guiding them, but the overall decisions are up to them. And I've got other videos out that talk about the legalities of paying ransoms, etc, etc. Anyway, follow me along on social media. I prefer LinkedIn these days. We are up on the other social media platforms. We're up on, we've got a load of videos up on Instagram, YouTube, but we are shadow banned because they don't like guns and that type of thing. But follow us along on social media. I've got an array of books up on Amazon that talk about various aspects of the security business, close protection business, etc, and kidnap and ransom. And if you have any relevant questions, please feel free to reach out to me. We will be starting our courses again in 2025. We've taken a little bit of break on public courses because we've been too busy doing other things in other places. But we should be getting back into the swing of things, getting more reorganized in 2025. So in the meantime, be good, stay safe, stay out of trouble, and remember, it's not just with kidnap and ransom. You must, from the beginning to the end, it's all about confirmation, confirmation, confirmation. And if you're paying anything to anybody, confirm you're paying the right person, right people, and not as scammers. Take care.